Hello everyone, welcome to my presentation. Today I will be talking about PWA, about amazing technology that is the hottest trend in web development. And I think that you are passionate about web development because you are here, so it will be useful for you because this year, the 2018, is called the year of progressive web apps. And it was also the most important goals for e-commerce because of founders of different apps. So today I show you how to implement progressive web app using this framework, using Ionic framework. And I think it will be useful for you because if you are an Angular developer, it's super easy to create your simple application using Ionic framework because Ionic is based on the top of AngularJS. So the code is so similar. And maybe I start with something for you because I want to talk with you about your feelings, and I have exercise for you because for me progressive web app evolves because of user needs, especially because of mobile app users. So now I want that you imagine that you are mobile users. Can you feel it? So now I want to talk with you about your issues. Do you have any issues in your life? As a mobile users, you know. Anything? So maybe take a phone to your hand and try to. No, so maybe I share with you because for me the most annoying thing is, for example, this one, that websites on mobile are really slow. So I have evidence that this fact is not only annoying me, but also a lot of users, and data shows that over 52% of mobile site visits are abandoned if pages take longer than 3 seconds to load. And second issue is installation process. Do you like install application on your mobile? So data shows that that every step of installation costs you over 20% of your users. But I have a solution for your issues because the solution is progressive web apps. You can get native look and feel, and you don't need installation process because progressive web apps doesn't require installation, but you can also add an icon to the home screen and just open it in a quick way. And the second one is about the slow websites because progressive webs are fast. I'll show you in the next few slides why it is done. So now let me introduce myself. So my name is Marta Wis, and I'm a web developer. I work for a company called Eversys, and I simply say that I'm a web developer because I love the web. I really like find new features about web, read news, and of course develop web apps. I'm also a student. I study computer science at Warsaw University of Technology. And I'm almost graduated, because now I'm writing my master's degree thesis. And in my thesis, I compare progressive web apps and hybrid apps. And people say that master's degree is not a race, but please cross your fingers for my thesis, for my work, because I need to complete it as soon as possible, and it's hard for me. And next thing is about this. I'm a member of this group, Google Developers Group Warsaw. We organize meetups and conferences for local community to share our knowledge about Google technologies. And last but not least, I'm a co-author of this open source project. It's called PWA Fire. I show you here. This project is to create progressive web apps or also converting regular websites into progressive web app. You can find here ready-to-use JSON bundles and JavaScript codes to use in your app and just convert your application to progressive web app. You can also find here some nice tools to test your application, to create manifest JSON, and more. And you can also learn this technology here because we created some code labs, so some tutorials to create progressive web apps. So if you're interested, just visit this page and just enjoy. And now I'll tell you about web development evolution, because for me, progressive web apps are the next step in web development. So I want to revise some facts. I divided this evolution on few steps, and for me, first step and first strategy, it works on a machine. translate to Polish, u mnie działa. So we are focused only on your local environment, but it's, you know, it's not so stupid strategy. It's so smart because if it doesn't work on my machine, it doesn't work on yours. So yeah, it's super smart. Next step in this evolution is jQuery, Ajax time, yes, more dynamic websites. So in general, jQuery was cool, but now we are focused on mobiles. So on mobile, it loads really slow. So if you have a lot of time and you like spaghetti code, feel free to use this framework. And if we are talking about performance of jQuery and also JavaScript in a browser, I can recommend you this article. It was published by Eddie Osmani, I think, a month ago. And it is about the performance of JavaScript inside the browsers, also on mobile. So if you're interested, I recommend to read it. Next step is mobile first. So it is also a responsive web design. And it's really important for progressive web apps because one of the requirements for being progressive is also being responsive. And our steps, current step, let's say, this is PWA and offline first, because one of the features of progressive web apps is working online. Offline, online also, so, you know, but offline first, so it means that at the beginning we should take care about offline states, about working your application offline. But, you know, it's super, I don't know, important to understand that it wasn't work the same way like online, because sometimes we need access to the internet and we can't handle some actions, but more after that, maybe. So now let's talk about progressive web apps. What's exactly this technology, this kind of app? So progressive web app is still a web app, but better. So we use basic web technologies. This is HTML code, CSS, and JavaScript, but we enhance our application and we can add some features that wasn't possible in regular web apps. We enhance our app to look and feel like native apps. We can use, for example, camera, geolocation, push notification. We can use background synchronization. And it's really important that this application is still running by browser on your mobiles. And we need modern browser because some features aren't supported on your mobiles by different browsers. And there are 3 requirements for this kind of application. So PWA should be reliable, fast, and engaging. Reliable, it means that it should work in different network conditions, unstable conditions, and also offline. We can do this using service worker, cache API, fetch API, but more about this later. Next feature is being fast. So we don't have Slack animations. We can use app shell model. So we don't need to reload your application, your own components, but you can also use the cache and reload some static files, for example, from cache. So it will be faster than regular web app. And the last feature is being engaging. So we can engage our user more by using push notifications, for example, or for possibility to add icon to your home screen and just run in this way your app. Because PWA allows us to create native experience, native user experience, so now I want to compare these 2 technologies. So let's focus on pros and cons of native apps and regular web apps. So as you can see, the pros of native apps is a capability. So you have an access to the hardware on your mobile. So you can use, for example, camera, geolocation, and Bluetooth, more and more. But for regular web app, you just need a web browser and URL, and you can run it everywhere. So we can say that this application is rich. So progressive web app compare these pros of native apps and regular web apps. Here is a comparison between these 3 technologies. So we can see that progressive web app compared the best of native apps and the best of responsive websites, because as you can see here, we can use offline functions, push notifications. We can install our app on home screen, but this is not the same installation process that is in native apps. We have a full screen experience, but from responsive websites, our app can be indexable, so we can find our application by a browser, by search. We have one place to enter content. We can work across all devices. We don't need downloading and updating. So I have a riddle for you, because here you can see two apps, because this is Twitter, and one is the progressive web app, and second is Android app. Can you tell me which one is native app? Yes, because you use native. Okay, so how does... Thank you. And here, no, please don't whistle. Anyone? It's easy. Which one? But which application is? Yes, exactly. And here is comparison in sizes of different platforms, and PWA and Twitter on iOS and Android. And as you can see, PWA doesn't need installation, so we don't need memory on our mobiles. And iOS has the bigger size. So from user side, you don't know that you use progressive web app or native app because it looks the same. You don't need a memory in your device. So I asked a question on Twitter, and I asked that users of Twitter prefer native apps or progressive web apps. Maybe not prefer, but what use? So they said that they use native app in 68%. So why? You can find here the cause of this fact, let's say. So Andreas wrote that he uses the native application just because of the bad PWA support on iOS. So this is the reason. And you need to know that this is essential problem for progressive web apps, the browser support. So now I want to tell you about the supporting. And this is a tool from my project, my open source project, PWA Fire. So you can use it to test that your browser can support these features of PWA. So now I use Chrome, the newest version, and Chrome doesn't support share options, but the rest are supported. And there are some results of this testing, and for different platforms and different browsers. And for Chrome, as you can see on Android, the support is good. There's only geofencing isn't supported, but for iOS, only 4 features are supported. So that's a big issue. And what's the most important, that Service Worker isn't supported for iOS. For different browsers, it's similar situation. If you want to use progressive web apps, you should use Chrome, Edge, or Opera, because these browsers have the best support for PWA features. And this is Firefox. On Firefox, you can't use Bluetooth and beacons, but rest is similar. So you should remember that if you want to compare progressive web apps and iOS, it's not possible. So how to implement progressive web apps inside your application, how to convert regular websites into PWA. So we have 3 requirements. This is using Service Worker, HTTPS, serving your application via HTTPS, and adding manifest JSON file to your app. So Service Worker is kind of web worker, and for you as a developer, it's just a JavaScript file. And this file allows you to control your app in different tabs, and you can implement here some actions for Service Worker that can be used in offline state. You can use, for example, caching and use background synchronization. HTTPS, serving via HTTPS, is to secure your application, because if you use Service Worker, the requirements is serving it via HTTPS. And last but not least is using manifest.json. This is just a description in JSON format. So now more about service worker. So how it works. So if you have a regular web app, you have only the communication between clients and server. But for progressive web app, we have additional layer. This is the service worker. And this service worker can communicate with your client in different browser tabs and with your server. So if we have offline state, then you don't have an access to your servers, but you can have some resources, for example, from service worker, from cache. The other situation, if your user has left the page, your service worker still works. So you can, for example, use background synchronization. So now more about manifest.json file, but it's super easy. As you can see, this is a description of your app. There are meta information about your application. This is name, short name, icons, display type, and others. Have you ever used this format in your app? All right. So this is another tool from my project. This is manifest.json generator, and this is just a form. You can type here a description of your app, and here you can get a ready-to-use manifest.json. And this file we add to HTML code. We need to add it inside head tags. So if you implement progressive web app, you should know these tools. On the left, you can see Workbox. This is a JavaScript library for offline support to web app. And on the right, you can see a lighthouse. And this is just a tool to test your application, to test progressive web app. And today, I show you how to implement progressive web app in Ionic. And as I said before, it is built on the top of Angular.js. And we use Angular directives to implement some native features. Ionic has a lot of ready-made UI components that are easy to use. They don't take care about responsive, let's say, web apps. And Ionic is not only a framework, but it's also an ecosystem because it allows you to build, deploy, and monitor your application. So now it's more practical part of this presentation. I show you how to implement progressive features inside Ionic application, Ionic blank template, let's say. And I prepared this app. Do you remember this app? Do you remember this sound? Sorry, but you need to imagine. It's not my account. Okay, so I will implement this messenger, our native messenger, but in different meaning, native. And there are a list of tasks to do for us. So at the beginning, we install our dependencies to build this kind of application. So it will be Ionic, Cordova, and Firebase. Firebase because, as I said, about these requirements and serving via HTTPS. So for me, the easiest way to serve your application and testing is to use just Firebase. We create new template, new project using Ionic. After that, we add some templates, logic, and styles. We create Firebase project. We initialize it locally. After that, we create these PWA features, so manifest.json and service worker. After that, we deploy our application, and we'll be testing that it works. And today, we want to get 100% of being progressive. So, okay, so this is my first step, but I have installed these dependencies. It's just using a node. You can check that it works. It's installed this way. It's not updated, but it doesn't matter. Okay, so it should work. So we start a new app using this command. Here you can select your basic template. So I want to use just blank. Yes, I want to integrate target native iOS and Android.
Which version of Ionic?
I tell you for a moment. 4.1. Okay, so it will be created in a few minutes, let's say, but now I want to show you this framework. I really like Ionic because of documentation. For me, it's nice, and here is tab for you if you're a developer. So maybe I show you this tab, UI components. The previous version was better. I don't know if you see this documentation. Okay, so here is the list of components, native components you can use in your app. So you can just choose what you want. And here is basic usage, for example, and examples of code. So as you can see, this code is a template for your app. So specific tags are started with ION, this prefix, let's say. And this page is, maybe I'll show you how to add native features, how to add these plugins. So you need to install it using Node, for example, in this way. And if you want to use it inside your app, inside your code, you just need to add it inside the constructor. So it's super easy, I think. And using this API, you can add some functions of methods you need. All right, I don't know, Pro version. Okay. So that's a blank project. So as you can see, it looks like Angular project, but for me, the biggest difference is between in navigation, because there you have a pages, and as you can see in this file, you have a basic root page called, and you can navigate between pages, but pushing and popping different pages. But today, let's go to the next step. I want to make this application progressive. And I want to show you a tip how to create this kind of app, this template, if you're a beginner in Ionic, because it's nice creator tool. Or maybe here I was locked. I wanted to hide this, but you know, I clear cached. So. Okay, so this is Creator. It's a nice tool if you start with Ionic, because you just need to drag and drop components to your app. And here you can see pages. So this is a structure of your app. Here are components. So if you want to add just a button, I can drag it here. On the right side, you can customize your elements. And after that, if your app is ready, you're just, it's ready to customize, for example, you can export your project. And I exported this, and I want to show you the best practice ever. This is, yes, copy and paste. It should work, yes. Yes, I want to do this. All right, and I don't need this basic page home. So let's try service application. Oops, sorry, I'm not in this directory. Yes, it's ready to use. Right, so this is my app, served locally at the beginning, so I can change my status. I can set my description, so I'm not happy, I'm just... I can send message to my friend. Okay, so this is application in Ionic that we served locally, but if you're creating progressive web apps and we want to use service worker and progressive web features, we should to serve it via HTTPS, as I said. So now I serve it on Firebase. So I want to create. I'm logged in, so I don't need to input my email address. If you create this project, after that you need to log in inside your app locally. Maybe here. This simple command. Okay, I'm logged. So now it was created. Yes. I can initialize my Firebase project inside my app. Yes, I'm ready to proceed. Now we can select Firebase features, and I want to use hosting. And I created this project. This step is really important because we need to select directory that will be served on Firebase. So in this case, in Ionic, your package after build is in this file, this directory, www. So I want to select this folder. Okay. Yes, I want to have single page app. No, because I don't want to override, because if I select this, then it's template. So I want to use my own. All right. So now I build my application. All right. So now I can deploy my application using Firebase. All right. It's ready. So here should be host my app. Yes, it works. So that's great. So now it's time for next step. Now we add progressive web features. So let's go to the slides. We create manifest.json file and we just use this app because it's super easy to use it. So this is my app, this is GT. I want to have full screen. My theme color will be white. Icons I added after.